Hello, welcome to Actual. Today I'm doing a vlog about my top 15 most anticipated games. Games that are coming out this year that I'm really excited about. At number 15 is Covert. This is a spy-themed game set in Cold War Europe. And the thing that first pulled me in was the box art. It's a picture of London's South Bank, and it's just really well illustrated. Also, I've seen some character art that's been released, and the artwork is just phenomenal in this game. I would probably buy it for that alone. The spy theme also grabs me, and the fact that it's designed by Klenko, who designed Dead Man Tell No Tales and also the recent Fuse, which is a real-time dice cooperative game. He just seems to have a good track record lately. Light to medium weight games with interesting themes. That's the kind of stuff that really grabs me, so I'm really interested to see whether he can pull this one off. Also, the fact it's set at least partially in London really interests me because that's where I live and I'm always kind of drawn to those things. At number 14 is Sushi Go Party, which is a successor to Sushi Go, which is a very simple, light hand drafting game. This actually was in my top 10 Christmas games, so go and check out that video if you haven't already seen it, and I'll explain more about it there. But it's just a really fun, light family game that I've really enjoyed, and everyone that I've ever introduced it to has really enjoyed. The one, I guess, downside to that game is that it only ever played to 5 players, and that was a bit restrictive. It would have been nice to be able to go to 6 players at least. Sushi Go Party plays with 8 players, and so there's a lot more flexibility in that respect. It has this cool element where you can pick and choose the sushi that you use in your game, so there's maybe 10 different types of sushi, but you're not always going to play with them in any one game. And number 13 is Secret Hitler, which is a huge Kickstarter success from the people that brought us Cards Against Humanity. And this is a hidden traitor game in the similar vein to The Resistance or One Night Ultimate Werewolf. There are 2 factions effectively, and your faction has to prevail to win the game. In this game, it's liberals and fascists, and so the fascists are trying to remain hidden and sabotage from within. The thing that interests me about this game is that it has this mechanism where you're passing laws. The person who's in charge of passing the laws, they might be forced into passing a law they don't want to pass, which will maybe point a finger at them as to being one side or the other. And that reminds me of a game called Dark Moon, which I reviewed on my channel, and I really like that in that game. So I'm really interested in seeing it in a shorter, more simple party-style traitor game. And number 12 is 879 Vikings Invasion of England. This is a game from Academy Games, who are famous for war games. They also make a range of lighter war games, such as 1812 Invasion of Canada and 1776 Rebellion. And these are team games. So Invasion of Canada is 3 versus 2, and that's a game that I really enjoy. This game is similar to that. So one player is playing as the Vikings, and there are 3 players playing as different English factions. And that's just something that grabs me because I think it allows you to play with a player that doesn't like cooperation in games, and they can play as the Vikings, and then players that do like to play cooperative games can play as the English. I believe it's going to be kickstarted in June, so look out for that if you're interested. And they also mentioned a while back a game that I believe they're still working on called Maquisard, which is a cooperative game about the French resistance that is very similar to their game Freedom, the Underground Railroad. And so that's another theme that really grabs me, so that's another one that I'm going to be looking out for from Academy Games. And number 11 is Whitehall, which is the spiritual successor to Letters from Whitechapel, which is a really fun hidden movement game where one player plays as Jack the Ripper and he's running around Whitechapel trying to kill his victims, and the other players are trying to catch him. What I really like about that game as opposed to other hidden movement games is Jack never kind of shows you where he is. You have to find clues as to where he's been, whereas other games like Spectre Ops and Scotland Yard, you're constantly revealing yourself throughout the game. The one downside to Letters from Whitechapel is that it's really long. It can take sort of 3 hours to play. And Whitehall is listed as taking maybe 60 to 90 minutes, which is significantly shorter. And if that's the case, then I'm definitely on board with this game, if it's able to offer the same experience. The thing they've mentioned in the description of this game is that the murderer is kind of leaving body parts around London. And that sounds cool as a theme, but I am a bit concerned that that might actually lean towards the kind of revealing where you've been in the way that Scotland Yard and Spectre Ops and other games like that work, and that's kind of disappointing to me. I love that it's set in London again, and I love this kind of theme, and I love hidden movement games, so I'll definitely be checking this one out. And number 10 is Dr. Panic, which is a real-time dexterity cooperative party game where everyone plays as surgeons, and it just sounds like this chaotic mess of a game, but it sounds brilliant fun as well. It's from Roberto Fraga, who seems to make nothing but kind of crazy sounding games. And the only one I've actually played of his is Pingo Pingo, which I didn't actually enjoy. But with this one, I love the theme. Hospitals and medicine, definitely in my top 5 desired themes in games. And I think it kind of operates in that world of chaotic timed party games like Panic on Wall Street or Space Cadets Dice Duel, where there's lots of shouting and it's really stressful and you're sweating by the end of it. And I enjoy those games, those 2 games, but I feel like I'm waiting for that one that's really going to get me, that I'm really going to love, and I'm hoping that this one is that. And number 9 is Chronicles Origins, which is a game about building a civilization, and it has a legacy aspect. So if you've ever heard of Risk Legacy or Pandemic Legacy, those kind of games really excite me. I think they really excite everyone. And this game does something even more different. The idea is it's going to have a series of games, starting with Chronicles Origins, which is set in the Stone Age, where you're building a tribe and doing other Stone Age type things. But then they'll release a second game, which will be further into the future, but you'll be taking your civilization that you created in the first game, and it will be having an impact on that second game. I mean, that just sounds incredible. It's from designer Dirk Knemeyer. I've never actually played any of his games, so I'm not too sure about him, but he's collaborating with Rob Daviau on this one, and Rob co-designed Pandemic Legacy, as well as effectively inventing the Legacy format with Risk Legacy, so I'm really excited to check this one out. And number 8 is First Martians, Adventures on the Red Planet, which is from designer Ignacy Trzewiczek, and it's a spiritual successor to Robinson Crusoe, Adventures on the Cursed Island, which is his amazing desert island cooperative game, which I really love, and is just known for being incredibly thematic. This game is very similar to that, but it actually involves an app, and so the app is going to introduce events and take away, I think, some of the admin of sort of drawing cards and things like that. And I really like the sound of that. I like the idea of an app kind of doing some of that hard work for you, but also making things fresh and maybe keeping the game more balanced. I also hope maybe that it kind of decreases the setup time, because Robinson Crusoe is fairly tricky and lengthy to set up the game. Any game that's based on Robinson Crusoe from that designer with the same kind of thematic depth, and it introduces an app to revitalize things, I'm definitely going to check this one out. And number 7 is News at 11, which is a storytelling game where everyone's playing as news anchors. So you're each reporting the news to each other, and as far as I'm aware, the stories develop throughout the day. So you'll start with like the morning news and you'll have certain news headlines, but then when you get to the lunchtime news, the same stories are being reported on again, but they've developed, and it just sounds like one of those games where you're making everyone laugh. If you play it with the right group, it's going to be hysterical. And the best advert that I've seen of this game is, I listened to the Geek All-Stars podcast, episode 104, where they play this game in its entirety, and it just sounds so much fun. And these are just my favourite types of games. I love Fun Employed and Snake Oil and Once Upon a Time. Anything where you're being creative with your friends and making each other laugh, because you just remember those play sessions for years to come. You remember those different elements that you came up with. And I can't wait to get my hands on it. That's News at 11. And number 6 is Seventh Continent, which is a choose-your-own-adventure exploration game where you're revealing cards that create the map and you're exploring this world. I love games like that. I also love games that have a real immersive storytelling element, like Time Stories or Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. This was a huge Kickstarter success. It made 1 million euros, and all the reviewers that covered it seemed to go crazy for it. I think this game has the potential to be huge. It may be a big flop, who knows, but I'm definitely looking forward to checking it out and seeing if it can meet the hype. Number 5 is Seafall, a legacy game from the father of legacy games, Rob Daviau, who designed Risk Legacy and co-designed Pandemic Legacy. This one's a bit different. He actually designed it from the ground up as a legacy game. It's not just a traditional game like Risk with a legacy aspect. And so that in itself is exciting, but the theme is also really interesting. It's set in the age of discovery, and you're going out and sending ships and charting new lands. You're literally creating this map on the board that will change every time you play it. And that just sounds incredible. There's also a big storytelling element to it. This game has been a long time coming, and there's a lot of hype surrounding it, but I just can't wait to play it. And number 4 is Dead of Winter: The Long Night, which is a standalone expansion to Dead of Winter, which is a game that I absolutely adore. And if you haven't seen my zombie mega review already, go and check that out. I review 5 zombie board games and I talk about why I love Dead of Winter. This is an expansion, so you'll get all the great stuff of new characters and new Crossroads cards for new storytelling elements and new crises, all the stuff that a Dead of Winter fan would love. But there's also new features, things like warring with rival factions, and there's a load of stuff that hasn't been announced yet. I can't wait to see what they do with it. You can just buy it on its own, so you can get the Dead of Winter experience without owning the base game. I've already pre-ordered this game. I can't wait to try it. Dead of Winter: The Long Night. And number 3 is Fog of Love, which is currently on Kickstarter and describes itself as romantic comedy, the board game. Without going off on one, I really like romantic comedies, the good ones, of which there aren't hardly any. And any game that kind of captures that theme of relationships, love, that tries to kind of deal with this adult topic, I'm really interested in that because it's obviously very unique. Nobody really touches on it. I love that this game seems to have a lot of thematic quality to it. So there's events which, as far as I understand it, are inspired by Dead of Winter's Crossroads cards, where things will happen in your relationship and you have to make decisions, and you've maybe got 3 options, and the decisions you make will impact the game, depending on what you pick. There's also secret objectives, so you're playing with another player and you represent the 2 people in this relationship, but you might have certain goals that conflict with theirs, or they might align with theirs, you don't know, and that's really interesting. It just sounds like they've really nailed the thematic mechanisms. Pretty much all the games that I love, they get the theme right, but it's the mechanisms that bring the theme alive. So I can't wait to try out Fog of Love. And number 2 is Pursuit of Happiness, which is a game about life. And I'm actually cheating a bit here because I've already played this game. It was released in a very small run at Essen last year, and I've played somebody else's copy. And it's such a fun thematic Euro game where you are living a life and you're making decisions like taking on jobs, starting new hobbies, starting new relationships and having children. Everything you do in this game makes sense thematically. And it's just brilliant. It just comes alive. You create a story each time. The way you do these things is by you literally spend time. You have certain time counters. And so if you do a really time-intensive career, you might make a lot of money, but then you have less time to do hobbies or have a relationship. It was on Kickstarter fairly recently, and I can't wait to get my own copy. There's nothing I didn't like about this game. And number 1 is The Networks, a game about running a TV station. And I'm cheating again with this. I have had a chance to play this game. The designer Gil Hover came to London and I got to play it with him. I'd actually already backed it based on the theme alone. I love TV, I watch TV all the time, I work in TV, so I was always going to get this game for the theme, but I didn't know if I'd like the gameplay, if it would really match up, and it just does. Just like Pursuit of Happiness, this is a game that has thematic mechanisms. You have a nightly TV schedule and you're putting on shows at certain times, but if you put them on at the wrong times, you're not going to get as many viewers. But if you put a show on at the wrong time, in the first season, you won't get hardly any viewers. But come around the second season, the viewers have got used to the new schedule, and so then they start watching it again. That's just a really cool mechanism in itself. You're hiring stars, you're getting in adverts that make you money, and if you put certain shows will be really popular in their first 2 seasons, but then they really drop off because they were just kind of a flash in the pan. Other shows, they kind of grow, maybe a bit like Breaking Bad, where early on, nobody's really watching it, and then it really starts to get loads of viewing figures. Just all those little pieces just make this game so thematic and make this game my most anticipated game, The Networks. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel to see more of the same. I'm Actual on Facebook and Twitter. I'm John Perkis. Thanks for watching.